Hi everyone, and welcome to this tutorial for building your very first augmented reality app. So to follow this tutorial, all you really need is just an iPad and the Zwift Playground app that you can find on your App Store. The Zwift Playground app allows you to write some real Zwift code. Keep in mind that the code we're gonna write, it's not some fake code, it's real code. You can literally just copy and paste it on Xcode on your Mac and you can build your very first app just in this way. Now, in augmented reality, there are two very important steps that are very complicated to manage. The first one is the tracking. The device you're using, whether it's an iPhone, an iPad, or whatever other type of device out there in the world, needs to understand the environment, the real environment in which you are moving. So tracking is the first issue. The second problem is in rendering. If you look at a virtual object, you don't want to see it as a virtual object. You want to believe it's really there. So you need to have high quality renderings. Speaking about the iOS operating system, the way you could code an augmented reality app up until 2 years ago was by using two frameworks: ARKit for the tracking component of the problem, and SceneKit or Metal for the virtual and the rendering component of the problem. RealityKit manages both the tracking and the rendering, so you need only to master one framework and not many. In augmented reality, we will have a scene, okay? It's an augmented reality scene. In this scene, we're gonna have many different anchors. What is an anchor? An anchor, it's a physical object, a physical element of the real world in which I'm living that we can access from code. So let's say a table could be an anchor. I can use a table that is detected by the device as an anchor for my own app. Or you can use faces, or you can use images. You can really use objects. You can use whatever you like as an anchor. And RealityKit, as soon as you start your session of augmented reality, automatically starts tracking all the different anchors it finds in the environment. So that's the beauty of RealityKit, and that's the first problem, tracking, solved. Then there's rendering, okay? Everything is automatic here. Once you have your anchor, you can start adding entities to these anchors. An entity could be a mesh, so a sphere, a cube, or a more complex mesh, such as an animated character. All you have to do is to access anchors from code and add entities to these anchors. And then RealityKit will automatically manage the rendering of everything and the tracking of everything. So now that this aspect is clear, let's jump right to the code. Okay, so once you have installed the Zwift Playground app from the App Store, we can just launch it. As soon as you open the app, a similar interface will appear. So in this app, you can actually download predefined playgrounds, such as models, or you can also download playgrounds from other publishers. But we're not just doing that. What we're gonna do, we're gonna create a whole new playground. So just press on the bottom here for creating a new playground. And this is it. First thing first, we need to import the frameworks required for our code to work. The first framework is Playground Support. It allows us to use the playground page of the Zwift Playground application to display outputs from our code. Then, of course, there is RealityKit. Then there is UIKit that is used for accessing graphical user interface elements such as buttons. Okay, so let's double click and the keyboard appears and we can start writing import playground. So as you can see on the keyboard, there are some suggestions that appear depending on the code we're writing. So we import UIKit. This helps us in writing code. Okay, great. So now we need to create our augmented reality scene, and this is just like creating and declaring a new variable. So let's define AR scene, let AR scene equal to AR view, and the constructor of AR view that we're going to choose is the following. So it takes as parameter a frame. A frame is a region of space in the graphical user interface, and this is why we had to import UIKit that defines the region in which we want our augmented reality scene to appear. We also need to define the camera mode, that is basically telling him, hey, I want an augmented reality experience, and let's set automatically configure session to true. So let's create a new CG rect that defines our frame, and the constructor takes the initial position of the rectangular, that is the 0, point, the width, and the height. These are pixels. Camera mode is AR, and automatically configure session set to true. Okay, so now we can run this code by pressing the play button. It asks us if we allow access to the camera. This is of course required for the augmented reality. We say okay, and nothing happens. Why? Well, because we have to tell him that we want our AR scene to appear on the playground page of the Swift playground. So to do that, we need to say playground page dot current, the current page, set live view AR scene. Now, if we press play, the camera finally gets activated. But of course, there are no objects in the scene. So what we need to do now is to add a sphere, just as an example. Fortunately, RealityKit comes with a set of predefined meshes, such as spheres, cubes. So all we have to do is to declare a new variable. We're calling it sphere. And from mesh resource, we're gonna call the method generate sphere. And it asks for the radius, 0.2. Now remember, here the units are meter. So I want to generate a sphere with a radius of 20 centimeters. Of course, we have our mesh. Now we have to create our entity. So again, let's declare a new variable, and we're gonna call it sphere entity. So let sphere entity equal to model entity. So it's an entity of a model, and the mesh given as parameter is sphere. Great. So now we need to add an anchor, and so let plane anchor equal to, it's a plane anchor, so it's an anchor entity of a plane, and as a target we're telling him horizontal. So this means, hey, as soon as you find an horizontal plane, just create this plane anchor. So now we take our augmented reality scene, AR scene, and we add to the scene, so dot scene dot add anchor. We're gonna add our plane anchor. So now the plane anchor is part of the augmented reality scene, and then we need to add our sphere entity to this plane anchor. So plane anchor dot add child entity sphere entity. Now let's run the code and see what happened. So as soon as it finds an horizontal plane, it adds the sphere. And look the quality of the tracking. I'm moving around and the sphere is still there. Now this sphere looks very ugly. we want to add a material to this sphere. So doing that is very easy. We need to declare a new material. So let sphere material equal to simple material and then it takes the color as parameter. I'm choosing gray, but you can choose whatever you want. And is metallic true? So we will have automatic reflections on the surface. As you can see now, when I'm declaring the sphere entity, I'm also adding materials and in square brackets, sphere material. So now the entity contains the mesh of the sphere and the material. And look, here's our sphere. And look at the reflections. What actually RealityKit is doing is taking pictures of the floor and placing them on the surface of the sphere. This is something very cool, but also very complicated to do manually, and this is all automatic. Now, the default position of the sphere is 0, 0, 0, which means is in the origin of the anchor. So as soon as it detects an anchor, it detects the position, but we can also specify the position of the sphere. So sphere entity dot position, and we can say not 0, 0, 0, but like 0, 1, 0. So the 1 is along the y-axis that is perpendicular to the plane, so it means 1 meter above the ground. And to see that, we can just press play. It finds the anchor, and 1 meter above the anchor, there's our sphere. That's really cool. So the last thing I want to show you is how to implement some very basic operations such as translation, scaling, and rotation. So the first thing is to generate collision shapes that are used by RealityKit to determine whether an object collides with another or with our finger. So sphere dot generate, sphere entity, of course, it's added to the sphere entity, not the sphere, dot generate collision shapes, recursive true. So along its entity generates all the different collision shapes. Then we need to install the gestures. So we are scene.install gestures for sphere entity. And that's it. So execute the code. Here's the sphere, and we can just drag it along the plane. We can scale it up. There is also the rotation, but of course it's a sphere, so you don't see the rotation. And that's it for this very basic tutorial. You now know the basics of RealityKit. Thanks for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it.